Let's talk about the evolution of Black love in our community.
I think it's went from life imitating art to art imitating life.
I hate to keep calling out this particular family sitcom that I guess we all grew up on. I think it showed us what success could look like between a couple.
I do think media does shape because it's a part of programming. How many of us can quote movies from the 90s or whatever that shaped something about our belief in love?
It's crazy that you guys talk about the media having such a strong influence on your families and relationship style and whatnot. So it actually begs the question, did the media help or did it destroy Black love? Let's talk about the evolution of Black love in our community with the emphasis on how the media actually affected it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it does influence, and it should. I think having the positive images, showing like the aspirational things, what could be, what helps you out the most as far as having a long-lasting relationship. I think that's good. Unfortunately, that's gone away, I believe, over time, just observing media from like the Cosby Show that we talked about earlier to now. Even before that, like the Jeffersons and shows in the 70s, you don't really see that anymore. And I think it kind of shows.
I have to agree with Delvin, and I hate to keep calling out this particular family sitcom that I guess we all grew up on to some extent, but it was very impactful because I think it showed us what success could look like between a couple, not just emotionally, not just financially, but like as a team, and that was something I didn't see growing up in my family. So I was glad, and I didn't see it growing up in the church a lot either. I saw families that stayed together, but I saw the dysfunction too. So to be able to see someone winning, even if it was fictional, was instrumental. So I think it kind of started off in some ways as a boon to us, but I think just to cut to it, when we lost ownership of our voices, then it started being a tool against us. So I think it has done more damage than the good it ever did. I think that people do still look to television for models of behavior and for microcosms of reality and life, different scenarios to play out. And I think what we get fed a lot now isn't functional. It's not anything we can really grow on. We mostly just dine on dysfunction in terms of our media. And I don't know if it's what our appetite is or what we're being served.
I agree with you on that one. Because I do think a thing could be good and then it could become bad, right? So we mentioned that, not to be mentioned, show that we all grew up on watching. Yeah. But that was because back then there wasn't a lot of shows that were popular, that were getting the money, the vehicle, that showed us in a particular light. And so, of course, we're going to gravitate to that, right? But now you have media everywhere, right? And shout out to Dr. Cosby at the time for having the vision to put that show together. But you have other people who are doing other types of content because they feel like that's what's going to sell to their audience. I don't want to say Tyler Perry, but he's another content creator that proliferates in our community. So he's creating content in the now. And some people would say the type of content he's putting out there is not great for us, right? At least in terms of how it depicts men, for example. Some people would say that.
Particularly straight men.
Right.
Yeah.
And so over time it's changed. And I think it's because once something became profitable, the people who want to make money came into the business. It was no longer about just a message, right? To your point, losing ownership of the voice, right? Same thing happened to hip hop to a certain extent when it was like more true to the art form, something off the corner. People were talking about their real experiences. Then executives were like, wait a minute, we can make money off of drug dealer talk. So now we're proliferating that. But part of it is that we also like that too, right? We told them that, hey, yes, this is something that we want to buy, and they produced it. And so we copped it. Right. So, yes, I do think media does shape. It absolutely does because it's a part of programming. You're doing it in so many different ways. It could be from the music you listen to. It could be a movie that you've seen. How many of us can quote movies from the 80s or from the 90s or whatever that shaped something about our belief in love? Right. And so I keep thinking about that scene when Trey and old girl got it popping for the first time in Boys in the Hood. I was like, yes, that was kind of like my first time, too. I resonated with that. Right. With the shots of gunshots in the background.
There's a lot of questions I have from this.
With the gunshots in the background.
We'll talk later.
He was punching in the air. Y'all remember that? He was really frustrated, and that good black queen recognized now was the time to soothe his wounds with vagina.
Yes.
And the message there was loud and clear. That was when black women were supporting black men in a way that I don't know that we're seeing that now, and I wonder if it has anything to do with our media.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Okay, so look, so let me
I
ask
feel
this
it.
then. Out of all of that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see as that's so prevalent in our community that's different? So you talked about how black men, or supposedly her giving up that vajayjay was her supporting this black young boy,
Mhm.
this
King,
young black
the
man.
king.
Mhm.
So what type of
She crowned him that day.
Yeah.
I mean, you know
Okay,
what I
sorry,
mean?
go ahead.
so what do you guys see as far as something significantly that has changed?
I think it's went from life life imitating art to art imitating life. It could be like it's too real. It's like it's just a mirror of what's going on now. People don't want to see what's aspirational, like what you talked about earlier. I just want to see what's happening in real life. They want more realism now and less aspirational content.
I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. I disagree though. I disagree because I think people two things. I think people are drawn to toxicity. Okay? I think people find happiness in other people's lives really boring. I think they find it boring and I think they get jealous and they want to turn the channel like, oh well, screw you, your life is good, mine's not. I think we want to tune in to people who are bigger train wrecks than we are. And so I think there was a search for that. And I think that in addition to this, the search for the drama, sometimes you run out of stories to tell, right? Sometimes you can only tell, how we got happy so many times. And when you're looking for a way to spice up the story, you got to throw something ridiculous in there. I think maybe we just sped down the road toward ridiculous. The final thing I was going to say was, I think that we got into a mindset of how to do me and not how to do us. So our media became more individualized and less communally focused. Became more about this one black person's individual journey as opposed to our journey as pairs or our journeys as groups or whatever. And I think that shift in the way our media was produced and consumed affected the way that we thought about ourselves and the way we thought about how we moved in the space amongst each other.
And I'll just add to that because as you were talking, two things came to mind. Two words: reality TV. I remember Real World, and before then, it was like a cop show. Maybe Cops might have
It
Cops,
been
was
yeah,
there,
cops.
right?
It was
Mhm.
cops.
And I think the timing for me makes sense because when we started having more reality shows, I think that's where you can see a change, I feel like, because it came when we were still relatively young.
Mhm.
I remember being in college trying out for the Real World, right? And at that time, Real World
Yeah.
had been out for quite some time, right? So we're still growing up, and the media is also still growing up. What they realized was that you can do reality shows for almost, fraction of the cost to do full production shows.
Mm.
You can find people who want to be famous. You can find people who are willing to do crazy things on television to be famous. You will find people who are willing to do emotionally damaging things on television. And so now you have an audience who are watching TV for aspiration or instruction or direction, right? Who are not getting direction at home. They're watching the boob tube, as they used to call it, right? And you're watching women throw glasses at each other.
Mhm.
And that's conflict resolution, right? And so people, or these relationships where it's transactional, heavily, or the music that you listen to says, hey, forget love. You know what I'm saying? I'll give you some vagina for a bag and to make sure that my cell phone bills are paid. Like you're not, so I feel like, right? I mean,
No, you're right.
you know what I mean? I got a couple of cell phone bills,
Yeah, yeah.
I can put something on it.
I'll pay some Boost Mobile.
I got a few spots in my plan.
Not you acting loud.
The family plan is a great deal. You know what I'm saying? Just don't call the other one. But it's supposed to be separated.
Notice they said only cell phone bill.
Hey, if that's what it costs in 2025, don't get mad at me. Okay. You walk into the store, you see the price. Oh, that's what it is? Cool. Let me go into my wallet and pay. Go ahead.
So, you know what, though? You guys are playing it nice. Let's be honest. You guys are being really nice about this
Okay.
topic and you touched on it briefly when you
Pause.
talked about the.
So,
Just briefly.
It's funny. It was good timing.
I don't know if I'm pausing to touch on it or the briefly part.
I think I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna-
Depends on the it, doesn't it?
I'm gonna lean on the touch on it part because the way I said it might have gave you pause. So I'm
Okay,
gonna lean
yeah.
on that part.
Okay.
And so that's the support of the black woman with the black man. And so for me, the biggest thing that I saw was the evolution between the black woman, her position in the household, to where now they're positioned the black woman to look a certain way and the reinforcements of some of these stereotypes that we have to face. And then so one of the things that when you talked about the support aspect of it, right? The support aspect, when we talk about the Jeffersons, yes, I did see that when I was 17, not when it was actually popping. But
My God.
but when we talk about like the Jeffersons or Good Times and so forth, with the matriarch being that strong person in the household with the husband and so forth, we actually saw an evolution of where the man was eventually removed from the household. We saw an evolution of where the relationship where the woman became single, and every time they portrayed the Black woman, it was actually as a single mother. And we actually saw that in commercials. We saw that in print ads. We saw it all over the place. And that was another way of programming to me. And then now we're seeing another turn where there's still that relationship piece, but now that relationship is interracial, where we're seeing that either Black men with other races or Black women with other races, but we rarely see Black and Black anymore unless we're specifically looking for it. And so I think that's one of the biggest narratives that changed for me from the time I started watching till the time till today. And we see that. And I'm surprised you guys did not touch on that, really like dive in deep in.
As far as more Black women, like the single Black women?
No.
You
No,
wanna
as
say-
far as
Not
the
the single mothers? Not too much on the Black women.
you know,
West
notice I
Mill.
said immediately, no, not that. But as far as that, when we talk about the evolution of Black love and what that now look like, what does Black love look like? I think is the question now.
So you raise a really good question, right? And when you started talking about it, what I started thinking was, we had Cosby Show, named it one more time, and then for purpose, then we had Different World, and we saw Dwayne and Whitley or whatever, saw that couple mature and get through college and get married or whatever. And I think then the story became, what do we talk about now? Because after you get through that romanticism, after you get through the mating and now you're married or whatever, now you got to do life, right? I don't think America was ready to tell what the story was for Black couples trying to do life. And I think that part fell off. So I think as we're watching TV trying to figure out what to do, that part of the story was never really shared with us, right? And we didn't get to see it acted out in our own families a lot either, right? Then we're going the whole TV thing. We go living single. Living single. They was single, y'all.
90s kind of world.
In the 90s kind of world. She was just glad she had her girl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey.
That's it. Yeah.
Even the couple, there were two couples that kind of like they got together. That was much later on in the season, but the ethos or the mind behind the project was Black people who could have been dating and could have been building, but they were living single. That was the story. That was the narrative that we started to see. That was the next thing for us to pick up and emulate.
But I got to push back though,
Go ahead.
because wasn't that what was actually happening though? Like, because you was mentioning art imitating life though, right? A lot of
Right.
times people draw from experiences, right? You're talking about a rash
Right.
of single mothers. I mean, if we're talking about the crack in the 80s or whenever disruption happened in the Black home from the 60s to the 90s, at some point in time, there was in fact more, you guessed it, single moms, right? So if you're going to do content that's going to relate to people, yeah, you might do a rock, right? I'm not that rock was a single mom story, but I mean in terms of trying to relate to the audience where people are at. Because at some point, the aspiration is like, I'm never going to get that. Right? It's not going to be me. That's not where I'm at, right? So we wanted more real. We wanted more authentic. We wanted things to reflect the real culture, right? There was a movement for us to be seen more on television, to have our culture seen. So we only want the positives?
Yes.
Right? Absolutely, right? Right? Because at some point in time, we got to be honest that the negatives are part of real life. And I think, again, if you're a person who is a director or an executive, you're trying to balance between telling the right stories, resonating with the audience, and making money, right? I feel like The Cosby Show, to name it one more time, was a rare instance where you was able to hit all three. And then since then, people tried to emulate that. And I think for them, they were like, okay, well, people are off this fairy tale shit because not everybody's going to be doctors and lawyers over here, right? So now let's just tell some more real stories. I feel like the 90s became the era of being more real, which coincidentally also probably segues with the whole reality show shit at the time because we were all growing up in the 90s. So I feel like the 90s became the era of we want to see the real shit. Right? And I think because of that, now you have people who are not even from the hood seeing some hood shit. Now they want to emulate that. And I think that's where it became a problem. It became a definition of what our culture was for other people to aspire to. We aspired towards a Cosby Show. People were aspiring to The Wire. You get what I'm saying? Like in terms of metaphorically speaking.
No,
right?
yeah.
The Wire was another great show.
Great
It was a great
show.
Not
But
good for family values.
But part of what made it great was that it was so real.
And gritty, yeah.
And people wanted real. I guess at some point in time, we didn't get the message that, hey, we don't want to emulate this. We just are showing you the real.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And